Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar on Paul Smith's College MSM Agent E-Summit 2020 Live. Our attendees are on the process of joining the webinar. In the meantime, on behalf of all of us in Paul Smith's College and MSM, I hope you, your families and all your colleagues are all safe and well. We are seeing positive signs in the vaccine development across the globe, and all of humanity is getting accustomed to the new normal as the pandemic is spreading everywhere, sparing no countries. You will learn more on how Paul Smith's College has created a new normal during these extreme times. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen from all parts of the world. My name is Jim George. I'm the Manager Global Marketing Office overseeing US institutions at MSM, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. I'm delighted and pleased to introduce today's facilitator, Ms. Jody Rossi. Jody is the Associate Director of International Veteran and Graduate Admissions at Paul Smith's College. We also have two of our distinguished faculties from Paul Smith's College joining this webinar, Ms. Jory and Professor Joe. Ms. Jory is a professor of wildlife biology in the Fisheries and Wildlife Science program at Paul Smith's College and is also the chair of the Natural Science Department. Professor Joe is the department chair for Business and Hospitality. A heartily welcome for joining this webinar. Before I hand over the mic to Jody, I'll run through the housekeeping requirements that are needed for today's presentation and the Zoom webinar platform. So what's today's agenda for the webinar? Yes, you'll be hearing a comprehensive presentation on Paul Smith's College by our esteemed presenters. You'll also get insight on the Natural Science Department and the Business and Hospitality program that Paul Smith's College has to offer. Also, you will get further insights on the attractive scholarships, the careers of future, and the highly demanded programs that Paul Smith's College has to offer. As a reminder, everyone is currently muted and will encourage you to type in your questions and comments throughout the presentation in the Q&A session present in the control panel. Later on in the presentation, we'll have a brief moment for question and answers, at which point you'll also be encouraged to type in your questions. In case you're facing any technical issues, please feel free to drop in a message in the chat box. This webinar is recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel afterwards. For those who have just joined in, welcome to today's webinar on Paul Smith's College MSM Agent E-Summit 2020 Live. So without further ado, let's kickstart things off by welcoming our esteemed panelists. Jody, over to you.
Thank you, Jim. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We are so happy you're joining from all over the world and that we continue in true international education style to collaborate together across all time zones to further really bring our efforts together to assist students to make their dreams come true and to help expand global learning, which is why we're all here today. And I'm going to give you a little rundown of what the presentation's going to look like today. I will be giving a very brief introduction to Paul Smith's College, and then Jory and Joe, my esteemed colleagues and chairs of their respective departments, will each present more deeply on each of their departments specifically for probably 10 to 12 minutes each. And so you'll really get some good insight into these specific programs from the professors who are teaching them, the professors who are working with the students one-on-one. And so I'm hoping that provides you with some really great details that you can take back to your students and when you're trying to identify schools. I know you sit through a lot of these and you hear quite often that our school's really unique, it's really special, it's really different. I think you're gonna walk away today seeing that we truly are. And we operate very differently than a lot of other colleges, so much of it based on our location, which I will talk about as I go through the introduction. At the end of the presentations from Jory and Joe, we will briefly go over the application requirements and also talk about what we're doing on our end to address COVID-19. We are fully in-person classes this semester. All of our students are living on campus and they are attending classes in person, and we have 0 cases of COVID on our campus. And so I'm going to share with you how we're doing that. And then some of the admissions requirements that we are very flexible on in order to accommodate our students through these very trying times. And so without talking too much more. We're going to get into it, and I'm going to show you some photos and talk about Paul Smith's College. And I hope you learn a lot about programs of study that you may have never even heard of before, because that's something we excel at. So when I talk about Paul Smith's being different, the biggest takeaway is, due to our spectacular location, which I'll show you on a map in a moment, we are a very hands-on institution. Approximately 50% of the work a student will do is going to be out from behind their desk. And it's going to be in the field, in the kitchen, working at local businesses, working at local hotels, and not just internship based. This is every single day. You're not seeing as many classes in the classroom and students in the classroom as you are seeing out on the grounds. You know, I was driving through campus on Thursday afternoon and saw, you know, some of our professors with small groups, and some were in canoes on the lake and some were in the woods, but there's some were just walking and talking. And so that's experiential education. And that's where we really thrive. It's for getting students out behind the lectures and into the field doing what they're interested in doing. So let's talk about our location in Paul Smith's New York. So you'll see at the bottom of the screen on this map is New York City. We're about 5 hours away. New York's a really large state. And if you see that blue circle in the top right-hand corner of the state, that is the boundaries of the Adirondack State Park. We are the only four-year institution located within a state park location. And it is the largest protected public and private land mass in the United States. And because of that, we see a lot of tourism. We see a lot of wonderful, unique businesses. And I think you'll definitely see from looking at our campus why it makes sense that the natural sciences really thrive here, and why doing science and having a campus that is considered a living laboratory is so important and critical to what our faculty are doing with our students. So while we're located in this rural area, we're still relatively close to New York City. You can take a bus or a train. You can go into Boston. It's just a few hours of a drive, but we're closest to Montreal, Quebec in Canada, and that's only about 2 hours away. And so we do have access to some of these larger cities, but we're still protected and in this beautiful rural area. And so total on campus, we have 14,200 acres of campus-owned land. 9 out of 10 of our students are employed within 6 months of graduation. $13 million was given away in financial aid and scholarships last year. Keep in mind, we're under 1,000 students on our campus. So that's a tremendous amount of money that we have awarded to students for such a small campus. 87%, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. 13 million is the amount. 87% of our students received financial aid. We have alumni graduates working in all 50 states, and we have alumni and graduates working in 14 countries. And 93% of our graduates say they would do absolutely everything exactly again the way they were educated at Paul Smith's College. We win the awards to back that up. And I think the one I'm most proud of, and I'm sure Jory and Joe are very proud of, is most innovative. And we are usually in the top 2 or 3 in most innovative schools every year in US News and World Report. And that is really based on the type of teaching that Jory and Joe are doing. That is that hands-on. That is being highly involved in students' lives. It's you know your students, and the students know their professors on a first name basis. They work with them independently. So you could have all of Joe's students could be the same major, but one might want to work for a business and marketing, and one might want to work in esports, and one of them may want to manage a hotel. And he's going to work with each of them individually. And that's what's innovative. We're not putting all the students through the same path and kind of on the same tunnel and popping them out at the other end. It is, it's highly individualized. And of course, best in undergraduate teaching. And again, thank you, Joe and Jory, for that. It's an outstanding award. So we're going to watch a little bit of a video here and this gives you a view of campus. This is some drone footage. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but I just wanted to talk to you about what a residential campus looks like. We are mandatory residential, and that means all of our students live on campus all 4 years that they are with us. This is important for a lot of reasons, and right now it's specifically important because that's what's keeping our students and staff safe on this campus. But as you look around and see, it's hard to see some of our dormitories and buildings because they're tucked into the trees. The campus is beautiful, but it's different because a student may sit in a class during a day, but then they need to go out that night to hunt for salamanders, or they need to go out first thing in the morning because that's when a certain bird they might be studying they can have access to. And so it's not a typical college schedule. Yes, they'll have their classes on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but there may be a speaker that comes in on Tuesday night, and there's a field trip on Thursday morning that the professor has arranged. And so it's really important that our students are living on campus and have access to all of the extra things that our faculty are lining up for them, and that they're able to step right outside their dorm in the morning. And if they have to go to a lab where they're collecting water samples, it is literally right outside their door. And so that access to this living laboratory is really critical. It's also really important socially that when you have a small school that has fewer than 1,000 students, that we have a close-knit, supportive community. And to do that, we need them living on campus. But third is that we're in a high tourist area, and that means we have some of the best resorts and hotels and restaurants and beautiful places, some of the best in the world in our area. But we don't have high-rise apartments to accommodate students. We don't have housing that a student could safely find and know that they're going to have all 4 years, because we are in a tourist area and we are in a rural area. And so it's important that they're on campus because that's where everything's going to be for them. That's where the sports complex is, the student health center, the counseling center. It's where their activities and clubs are located. We have a student-run bakery. Well, we did go through all of that. We have a training restaurant. Trying to get us past this slide here. Bear with me just a second. There we go. So as you see here, in these small towns, they offer everything a student could want. We have restaurants, we have concerts, we have music, arts, lots of festivities, all within driving distance and short driving distance of the campus. But really the campus is a community unto itself, and everything a student's going to need is right there. We're also only 30 minutes away from Lake Placid, and I'm sure Joe will speak about this when he talks about our sports management program specifically, because in Lake Placid, it's the home of the Winter Olympics on 2 different occasions. And it is still a mecca. It's still a very desirable area for high-level athletes to come. We receive a lot of international tourism, and there are a lot of opportunities here for our students, specifically working within business and sports management, to take advantage of Olympic level events and facilities. And so let's take a look for a second at the type of programs that we offer. And so we have 5 different departments. So natural sciences is what Jory will be speaking about today, and business and hospitality is what Joe will speak about. Some of these are going to look familiar to you. They're going to be majors you've heard of before, but a lot of them may not. So human health and the environment, disaster management, some of the environment and society classes that are really highly specific, like sustainability and parks and conservation management. These may be programs that your students haven't heard of before. So that's why I'm hoping, hearing from Jory and Joe, it will help you when you sit down with your students to identify these programs, because they're not always typically the same names that we hear at more traditional colleges. So we don't offer 200 majors. We offer very few. We offer about 27, but that's where our focus is. And what we do really well. So you're going to see, because of our location, a focus on natural sciences, a focus on environment, and then within the business, hospitality, culinary track, because that is the demand for this region. And all of those are in high demand worldwide right now. So I'm going to let Jory take over from here. Jory, if you'd like to tell a little about yourself, and then let me know when you want me to flip to the next slide.
Oh, very good. Thank you so much, Jody, and thank you everybody for joining. It's wonderful to be able to speak with all of you. I know you're going to be speaking to many other students and sharing the word of the wonderful things that we do at Paul Smith's. My background is I was very interested in becoming a veterinarian. I wanted to work with animals. And then in college, I began to work at a zoo, actually, and then realized there's this thing out there called conservation biology, where biologists protect endangered species. And I knew immediately that's what I actually wanted to do. And I share that story because so often I find high school students know very typical tracks. They know to be a doctor, a nurse. There's certain things they know to do with a biology degree. But we do so much more at Paul Smith's. And so often when we talk to those students, we tell them all the things they can do if they love the study of life, if they love biology, and they want to protect species or study species. And so that's my background, that's my passion, and that's what I bring as well as the other faculty in my department. So next slide, please. Can you do the next slide or do I need to? Oh, there we go.
I have, yep, I'll do it. I'm going to do a very short 1-minute video on the natural science department.
Okay.
I feel like I'm having some internet connection problems here, so we'll see if this doesn't start in a second. We'll move forward.
And if it doesn't, I'm a professor. I'm happy to talk. We do a lot of talking, right, Joe?
I'm going to pop out of that because it doesn't seem.
Yep.
There we go.
No worries. Very good. Okay, so you already have a sense of the wonderful place where we are and that it enables us to study the environment. And our students here are out in the forests, in the fields, out in the water. They're actively collecting data on all of that, the life, the living plants and animals, as well as the soil and the air and the water. And they learn how to collect the data, how to analyze the data, how to write lab reports. This is very much a strong science degree. So for those students that are looking to be environmental scientists, this degree prepares them to work for governmental organizations as well as nonprofit groups. It also sets the stage for them to go on to receive a master's degree or a doctorate degree, which some of our students choose to do. And so next slide, please. Related to environmental science is ecological restoration. And I'm thinking many of you may have heard of environmental science, but not ecological restoration. And I have to say, when it first came on the scene, I was also asking, well, what is the difference here? And the name really does describe it. This is about restoring ecological systems. We need those ecological systems to function, to provide us with clean water, clean air, to provide the diversity of fish and wildlife in the environment so that people can harvest that and eat that protein, as well as enjoy the beauty of it, the aesthetics, and recreate in it. So many reasons to protect and restore our environment. And this degree really focuses on how to do that, how to do the mechanics of restoring it, and how to judge and assess if it is now working. We need it to ultimately work as a restored ecological system. And we're finding here in the United States that positions are being posted. People are hiring for somebody with the background in ecological restoration. As you know, around the world, we have degraded the environment, and around the world, we are all working to try and restore those ecosystems. So we are seeing in the United States jobs with this in the title, and actually departments working within government agencies in the field of ecological restoration. And we know our students are able to find jobs right after graduation, as well as go on to graduate school. Next slide. Our biology degree has a very familiar name, and we find that many students follow a biology degree if they want to be a doctor. But oftentimes their families, their high school guidance counselors don't realize that biology is truly the study of life, all of life. It is a monstrously huge field. You can study lichens and plants and animals of all sorts. There's much to study in the field of biology. And some people who study biology may choose to go on to become a physician, but many people who study biology study it for the sheer joy of understanding how life functions Oftentimes, this has an application to the greater world, anything from finding penicillin and providing penicillin as an antibiotic to the world. I mean, all these sorts of things come from biologists. So our biology degree is, I think, really impressive because it does expose students to that breadth of knowledge, not just human anatomy and human genetics, but we cover much broader than that. So we're thinking about genetics and cellular biology across many different forms of life. And we're studying not just the cellular life, but also the whole organisms and the whole ecosystems. And again, students with a biology degree go on to work in an amazingly diverse fields, anything from nature education to becoming high school teachers, to going on to graduate school to continue to add to the world's knowledge of biology. Next slide. Human health and the environment is obviously related to biology, as well as the environmental courses that we have. Again, when you look around the world today, we find so often that human health is connected to the health of the environment. If we don't have a healthy environment, poor air quality, poor water quality, if we're not able to grow fish in a lake to feed people, the people's health suffers for that. And the human health and the environment degree is based in that. I do want to point out the picture in the upper right there. That's part of our history here in the Adirondacks. When tuberculosis had taken its hold around the world, many people would come up to the Adirondacks to sit on these porch chairs in the cool, clean, refreshing air in order to heal from tuberculosis. So our history of where we are is based in that. And then the bottom right picture shows current students out in the field collecting ticks. Of course, ticks can carry diseases that can affect humans. So these students are studying the distribution of the ticks and trying to learn more about how to protect people from diseases that are born from animals like ticks. So students with this degree may again go on to work in public health, protecting people in a public health capacity, or go on to graduate school also. And next slide. Okay. Fisheries and Wildlife Science, again, has a title that reflects very well what it does. These students are studying fish, as well as other forms of wildlife, birds and reptiles and mammals and amphibians. And students are often drawn to this because they have grown up hunting and fishing, and they enjoy being outside with the natural resources, and they want a job that will continue to allow them to be outside connecting with animals. So often, again, we have degraded our fisheries resources, overfishing around the world, and so we're teaching students how to manage fish populations so that the fish will be around for the long term. And same thing with the wildlife populations. We have overhunted them, overexploited them. Many are endangered, many are in need of protection, and so we're teaching students how to go out there and protect our fisheries and wildlife when they graduate. Maybe they will be hired by a governmental agency and work directly for the federal government. Here it's the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Or they may go on to graduate school. Again, many of our students are in graduate school studying things like wildlife diseases, as well as other related aspects when it comes to protecting fish and wildlife. And I think that was my last slide, Jody.
I have your couple of study abroad slides in here.
Very good. Very good. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
We feel so strongly about study abroad at Paul Smith's and certainly in our department that we, when we can, take students to take them to other places to study. This is a slide from a trip that was, I'm trying to think, it was earlier this year. It's amazing to think that. So the tropical ecology class went to Nicaragua, and they had a chance to do many, many things while they were there, as you can see in those slides. And they had a wonderful trip. And we alternate the tropical ecology trip with a trip to Russia, to the Moscow State University field station. So in the bottom left, you see a picture there from just outside of Moscow, as well as other trips that we have done in the past. You can see the Galapagos there, and the picture in the upper right was from Ethiopia. And I think this is a great representation of how we tie our study abroad in with what we are actually teaching, what the students are doing. These aren't pre-canned trips where students go. I just lost the picture, that's okay.
Oh, sorry, that was
right.
me.
That the trip to Ethiopia, certainly Ethiopia has suffered from degraded landscapes, as you know, much of the world has, but certainly they've had a chance to try and reforest and restore the ecosystems there. So this was a group of ecological restoration students learning from those in Ethiopia on how they're working to recover their ecosystems. And that is the end of my slide.
Thank you so much, Joy. That was fantastic. All right, I'd like to introduce Professor Joe Canto. Joe, tell us a little about yourself.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. My audio is good. Everybody hear me? Yeah, great. I don't know why I check on whether people can hear me. I have I'm a loud person. Okay, so that won't be a difficulty in or out of class. Typically, people know that I'm around. My name is Joe Canto, and I'm a professor at Paul Smith College. I'm also the department chair. I think you can see that by looking at the slide. I grew up in a very small dairy town here north of, right on the Canadian border. Let's just say that. And the only reason I mention that is because I originally got into the world of business and hospitality specifically to be able to see more of the world. And again, I mean, come from a small town and being raised at least partially on a farm. The world seemed very far away, and I went to Paul Smith myself for a hospitality degree, and then to some other schools as well. All this to say that being in the hospitality industry and having a jumping point into the rest of the world from hospitality and really business in general has allowed me to go to 3 continents, every state in the United States, minus Alaska at this point, work in all these different places. And I always thought I was never sure that I would find a job that I fell in love with, right? But I knew that if I got into something like, for me, hospitality, but any of our courses in the business and hospitality program, that I could live anywhere. And I would have a development of skills that would be welcomed in any community, and I have found that to be true. Now, truthfully, for me, I've spent most of my time living in tourist towns because I fell in love with the idea of tourism, whether it's a huge tourist town like Las Vegas or a small tourist town like Lake Placid. I spend quite a bit of time in Montreal and do improvisational comedy there. I apologize. There's a truck outside. I don't know if you can hear it. And I do improvisational comedy there. I perform it and teach it. There in Montreal. My point being that even when I'm in Montreal, I'm in Old Montreal, which is the tourist area of a large, over 1 million person city. So truthfully, the idea of tourism is close to my heart, mostly because it has been a gateway to the rest of the world. And I'm excited for anybody like yourselves who is interested in seeing other parts of the world. And I think coming through programs here at Paul Smith College is a great way to to use that as a springboard, right, as a start. Let me go through the programs very, very quickly. I don't have a specific slide on each, but hospitality, resort, and tourism management, people think it speaks for itself, but under that idea of hospitality is a huge umbrella of sectors of business, whether it's all the food and beverage areas of it or all different lodging aspects from a bed and breakfast all the way to a 5-star resort. I've worked at both. I've worked in every aspect of food and beverage as well. Everybody who works behind the scenes in marketing and the finance area that keep hotels running, even though they don't see the guest every day. Events from a 150-person wedding to the Olympics, right, are all encapsulated in that idea of hospitality. Then we have the full tourism side. Folks that are putting together campaigns that get people from all over the world to visit a region or an area. Hospitality, resort, tourism management. Then there's entrepreneurship. Every strong economy across the world depends very heavily on entrepreneurs. Those people who create and manage and build small business. Now, look, small business can be up to 250, 500 employees, and people can still certainly be considered entrepreneurs. People who think differently and take chances on themselves and their ideas and their hard work, whether they are developing a product, selling a service, any of those things, that's an entrepreneur. And if somebody has a mind that they really love the idea of making their own decisions and working for themselves, then an entrepreneurship degree is probably a very good step in the right direction for those folks. Sports and event management, as well as esports management, are two relatively new programs for us. Sport and event management is a, pardon me, natural for us, right? Lake Placid, where I live, is right down the road from the college, and hosted the Winter Olympics twice, once way back in 1932, once way back in 1980. But we're one of the few communities that have created all the venues associated with Winter Olympics and have been able to maintain them. This is important because even on a yearly basis, typically, we have qualifying events for luge and skeleton. If you don't know these things, just look them up, because I know that these winter sports aren't popular all over the world. Downhill skiing, cross-country skiing, biathlon, which is a combination of shooting and cross-country skiing, hockey, figure skating. What am I missing? Anyway, I'm missing some, right? But the idea of all those sports, all those facilities, huge facilities, are still here in Lake Placid, and they're still being used, and those events are enormous, with 5,000 to 6,000 people in attendance, as well as also all the ancillary aspect of it as well. Consider this: you are the one who is managing a downhill pardon me, ski event, right? Well, the skiers is one thing. You have to get all those athletes in place and all that developed and built, but you probably have 3 bands playing, because you have all these spectators, and you have a full food and beverage tent, and you have $15,000 worth of fireworks that are going to go off at the end of the evening. Remember, after each event, you have to have the medal ceremony, right? You have to have this big fancy ceremony with the correct flags flying and the correct a national anthem playing, and get everybody staged. You're putting on a show. Television production is probably there. So we have all that to manage also. So when we take a look at these events and say, oh, it's a sporting event, it's really a managed event with all these pieces. And they need people to manage each piece separately, as some to overlook the whole thing. You may or may not be that familiar with esports, which has grown out of the sports industry overall. Still held in arenas, still have thousands of spectators, still have top-level athletes. We just have added the technology aspect to it as well. The athletes actually compete live in an enormous stadium, and we're watching them on screens. I went to one just last year. It's super exciting. And there were 4,000 people in the arena watching people on screens play the games on the floor of the stadium. Really great stuff. We also have communication. Communication kind of goes over, again, an umbrella, right? We are in a world where communicating is more important because we have fewer people who are good at it, if you can think of it that way. At Paul Smith's, what we want to do is have the student leave and be what I think of as a triple threat. They're able to write well, they're able to speak and present things in a relatively face-to-face manner, and then they're also able to do things in a digital manner as well. They're able to manipulate all sorts of social media platforms in order to get the information out that way. Often somebody who's a communicator has to do all those things out of one office, and we want to ensure that our students are able to do all those things. So those are the programs: hospitality, resort, tourism management, entrepreneurship, sports and event management, esports, and communication. Anybody wants to go into marketing and all this messaging, you can go to any of these areas and end up in marketing. Look, I have a couple of slides here on some things that I just wanted to say that are built across the programs themselves. We have something called a semester in residence, where the students can, while in school, typically during their junior year, are able to work with one of our partner companies, either regionally, like they're still able to live on campus and work with the company, or somewhere else. It's like living off campus, but it's way, way off campus. It could be in Florida or South Carolina or Colorado, Manhattan. And students get a full semester's worth of credit because they were working at least 400 hours during that semester, and they're also taking a series of online seminars with us while working. So they're doing what I call working on purpose. What they are essentially doing is, while having a job, they are instructed through us, through our faculty, to look for certain things, to do specific readings, and then find it within the workplace itself, and complete the semester that way. So students can see, again, another part of the U.S. While they are attending Paul Smith's for a full semester. And we just have some examples here. South Carolina, Kiowa Island, or Lake Placid Lodge. Marcus Marty spent some time in North Carolina with Global Brands Group. Waleed, two pictures of Waleed, because Waleed spends a lot of time on the hill as a snowboarder while he's here at Paul Smith's, but he spent his summers earning experience and credit working with the Denahan hospitality group there in Manhattan as well. Jody, you can advance the slide if you would, please.
Okay, and just to let everyone know, so this would be for international students, this would be their curricular practical training. So this
Exactly.
would be in terms of immigration talk.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one thing that we do within our program is we try to make coursework that is what I call resume ready. And I guess if we're looking at a global term, CV ready, meaning that it can go in a couple of areas on that document. It can go under education, but it can also go under experience, that we have experiences within the classroom that are actually can be immediately applied in the workforce to a degree that it's not just I took this class, but I can do these things for you day one when you hire me. And here are just a few of them. Bright shiny faces of folks who are either on field trips and completing experiences internally in the classroom. I'm going to start in the upper left here real quick. 6 Glasses That Changed the World is a course that I wrote where we study beer, wine, spirits, coffee, tea, and Coca-Cola. And we take a look at the historical academic impacts that these products have had on society. But in addition to that, we study them from a business aspect as well, for those people that were to be incorporated into their business. Resort and Recreation Marketing Management is really a marketing course overall, a communications marketing course applied specifically to the world of resort and recreation. And here are some folks who are visiting the Whiteface Lodge, a 5-star property here in Lake Placid. I bring that up just because I was on the opening team. I've had a lot of industry experience. I've done a lot of different things. And I was on the opening team at the Whiteface Lodge here in Lake Placid. And because of that, many of our students can work there. They can use it as a jumping off point at their semester in residence, something of that nature. Field Studies in Hospitality is another course where many of our courses at the junior and senior level are project-based. So because of that, the class as a whole will work with a partner company or organization and figure something out for them. Something that we can figure out in 14 weeks, very specific project, but the whole group works together. But there are stakes, right? There are outcomes, meaning at the end of the semester, the group has to go back to the company and say, this is what we have figured out. We have studied your problem or your challenge. We've come up with multiple solutions. We have discussed a lot of things. We've visited the site a couple of times. Now here is what we think you should implement at your property to or organization to meet that challenge head on. Super intense, right? But also really effective. And at the end of the day, the student not only has learned something academically, but they have learned a skill that they can apply to an organization the minute they leave Paul Smith's. You see there where it says applications and entrepreneurship in the center at the bottom. Similar course specific to the entrepreneurship world, where there we work specifically with smaller companies, entrepreneurial companies, to do similar things. We might take on their marketing or their social media or one of their other business development challenges, and we figure it out for them. And then hospitality management capstones at the senior level. We have a capstone, this thing you do, your final project at your senior level, where you're bringing everything together from your studies throughout. And those are typically the same sorts of things that people are doing in the workforce to move from supervisor to executive or key management. So what we're trying to do all the time is have you do things in class that you can put on a resume and prove to your potential employer, I know how to do stuff. I can accomplish things for you. Next slide, please. At Paul Smith's as well, there is a business club called DECA. It's a global club at both the collegiate and the high school level. Tens of thousands of students join at Paul Smith's. It's a very active club, and it is a group of people from across all programs, but certainly it attracts the folks in the business and hospitality and communication programs, certainly. And they are often responsible for creating the traditions and the events and those sort of things that go on campus outside the classroom, still learning experiences, but a lot of it is good times, not only for the people within the program, but the good times that they develop are spread across campus, and many people on campus not in the club, not in the program, look forward to these events or activities on an annual basis. And that's it. And again, here are some things that that students have done in the past year or two. Next slide. It's a good club. You should join it. We have a couple of minors in the program overall that students within the program or in other majors can certainly add. One is entrepreneurial business. Say that you think to yourself, I would like to study hospitality management, but I'm doing it so I can open up my own place, ultimately. You would probably want to take the hospitality resort and tourism management major and add a entrepreneur minor to it. Anybody can add an entrepreneur minor. It takes your major and it focuses on the idea of opening your own thing, right? Working on your own, working for yourself. One minor. Another minor that we've developed in the past 5 years is a craft beer minor. Globally, the idea of craft beer, talk about entrepreneurship, small breweries and pubs and brew pubs that are opening all over, developing their own beer, their own recipes based on ancient styles or new modern combination styles of beer. We teach you the practical brewing aspect of it, but what I think more importantly is the business side of it as well, the marketing side of it, the promotion side of it, how to put a beer list together that brings in all the different styles that your market, the people who are going to be visiting a certain area might employ. We go into the whole aspect of food tourism and beer festivals and all that sort of thing as well through a number of courses. The nice thing about it is you can add either of these minors without adding additional time at Paul Smith's, as long as you pick the right courses when you're supposed to, and and you don't have to repeat anything. So I think there's a lot of value there as well. Jody, I think that's my last slide. Is that true, or is there one more?
Thank you,
Hey,
Joe.
sure.
All right, thank you, Joe and Jory. That was really insightful, kind of a deep dive into those programs. And those are the programs where Paul Smith's really excels. So I'm gonna quickly let you know a little bit about our partnerships. These are all Paul Smith's related. And so we have, I won't go over all of them, but for an example, the Gansey is a training restaurant located in on our campus, and it is completely run by students, and it's as a class. And so they're being monitored and they're learning, they're working the front of the house, the back of the house. It is a reservations only, very fancy, nice restaurant. And we get people who come from all over the region to enjoy the wonderful lunches that are there. The AP Smith's Bakery is a student-run bakery, and so they develop the theme of it. They do all the the baked goods, the soups, the coffees. It's one of our office's favorite places to visit every day. But we have a lot of different areas you can see. So like Adirondack Watershed Institute, which is studying water quality, and that is where our students can partner with the scientists working there on very high level research. Our Sustainability Center. There are just a lot of things happening on campus and partnerships where our students get experience outside of the classroom. I want to tell you a little bit about athletics. So if this video works, it's pretty quick. So let's see if the internet will hold out for us. And just to clarify that we do not offer athletic scholarships. So, well, let me click through here. Having more technical difficulties today than I usually do. Sorry, everyone. We only have a couple slides left and we'll get into the application process, which I know is an important segment. I think the videos are what's throwing off the PowerPoint here. So there's a quick look at some of the athletic teams that we have. And I want to talk a little bit about a safe place to learn. We do have a video down there, but I'm reluctant to play it because it seems to be messing up the PowerPoint. But when we're talking about COVID and that we are in the location we're in, and we have managed to keep our students safe and have in-person classes, again, a lot of that is due to the fact that we are residential. So everyone's living on campus. We're not having students come in from other cities and towns. And we tested everyone when they first came to campus, and we are doing random testing throughout the week of staff, faculty, and students. I think what we're seeing is that our students are so grateful to have the opportunity to be in class when so many colleges around the world have went entirely online, that they're really appreciative of the fact they can still be in class and be on campus. And so we are seeing students really take care of one another and make good decisions about social distancing and about wearing their masks. Our region in general is, and you can find some of these statistics on our website, our entire region of Northern New York at this point has around 800 COVID cases. So if you compare that to some of the larger cities and even some of the smaller towns, we are doing very, very well. We are a really tight community, and because we do see a lot of tourism, there are a lot of extra precautions taken. We are seeing families starting to look more at rural schools and getting them out of some of these big cities so that they can indeed go to a college where they can go and sit and have class and interact with one another. And we're a great option for that. I know we've all faced the same issue with embassies being closed this year and a lot of students not being able to get into the United States, but we are hopeful for the January term that we will be able to get some of our students that were deferred here. We were able to get 3 international students here because the embassies opened in their countries. And so we were able to get a few more on campus this year. And I just really want to stress that this is a very good option. If you have a student who doesn't want to sit another year out or do their classes online, then consider Paul Smith's, because we are, we're hanging in there and we're doing really well, and our region is doing very well. We are a safe, protected place to be right now. So a little bit about the cost. We are private, and so our tuition is approximately $30,000 a year, and then housing and meal, it varies between $13,000 and $16,000 depending on which housing level the student will choose. Our merit scholarships, they start at $12,000 and they go to $17,000. Those are renewable every single year. and they start with the 2.5 GPA on the US scale. And so essentially a student has to have a 2.5 to be admitted into any of these programs. And that means pretty much every student that is admitted to Paul Smith's is getting a minimum of the $12,000 a year scholarship. But then as their grades are better, they can get up to $17,000 a year. So that's $68,000 a year or $68,000 over 4 years if they're at that top level, which we often see internationals as being high achieving students getting that top level. And so that really takes a big chunk of that housing and meal plan cost and a little bit of the tuition and fees and lowers that. The application process, we're being very flexible, realizing that students are not able to get the testing they need. We've never required the SAT, not even for the scholarships. So your students don't need to worry about that. Our application is entirely free. And so they can apply through the Paul Smith's application on our website, or they can apply through the Common App. We are on rolling admissions. So we admit for August and January. And we don't have hard deadlines for those applications, but right now, as you all know, the biggest barrier we're seeing is wait times at embassies. And so I just encourage you to push your students early. We need to be doing everything a little bit earlier to make sure we can get them in and get them that embassy appointment. We need a copy of their transcripts, and we at this point do not need a WES eval if it's at the undergrad level and I'm looking at high school transcripts. I'll be the person that will translate those into the US GPA format. And so all that happens in-house. You can see our language requirements. And while we can be a little bit flexible on language requirements, we do not have an ESL program. And so we can't support a student who comes to us and is unable to learn in English effectively. So it's really important for us that when you're talking to students that they really try to be at that level or maybe slightly below. And if they are below that level, then I'm probably going to want an interview one-on-one with them and some writing samples. We just have to make sure they can get here and learn at that college level because we cannot provide the English support, and it really would be at their detriment ultimately. And so we try to stick by our English language requirements. We do ask for an essay or letter of recommendation, but even with that, we're being very flexible right now because we know that students are not always able to get that letter of recommendation from their teachers currently. And so just an essay, just so we can learn a little bit more about you. And again, the SAT is not required. And we are residential, so they do have to be on campus. I know that's a very common question. And our I-20 cost is $49,437. Again, that's not the direct cost. That has the added amount the government is requiring for their I-20. I typically, if I get an application, I can have a result to you in about a week or two. And if they submit everything, pay the deposit and submit for all the financials for the I-20, I can usually get the I-20 to them within 1 to 2 weeks after that as well. So that's all done in-house by me. And so now we'll open it up to questions, and thank you for listening. I appreciate it. Jim?
Yeah, so thank you so much. I'd request all the attendees if you've got any questions so that we can touch base on. So you can put it in your Q&A session or the chat function, whichever is ideal for you. In the meantime, I would just like to ask on this, that what are the international student on-campus job facilities that students get while they come and study in Paul Smith's College?
Yeah, so international students are welcome to apply for jobs on campus. They can work 20 hours a week during the school year, and on breaks, they can work 40 hours a week. There are more than enough campus jobs than we really have students applying for them. So of course they have to be qualified. They have to go through the interview process. We do not allow an international student to get a campus job the first semester. The priority is their academics. They need to get settled in culturally. They need to get settled into college. If they do well and they maintain good academic standing, then they can start applying for campus jobs the second semester. New York has a very robust hourly pay wage. So we pay $11.85 per hour. So a student can make really good spending money if they're working 15 or 20 hours a week. They are not going to make enough money to pay their tuition. We do offer payment plans for the family for tuition, but a student working on campus will not make sufficient income to pay tuition, but they will definitely make enough to go out and have some spending money and to travel and to shop and get the things they need while on campus.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Also, with regards to the on-campus job from the Adirondack Watershed Institute, so could you just give a little more insight on that particular thing wherein students get some type of internships or jobs?
Right, right. So the Adirondack Watershed Institute is a very high-level research center, and they hire approximately 100 people every summer. There are some things, and they really give access to student positions where a student can work all summer. A student does have to have a car for that, and international students can do that. I can help you with that. I can help you with getting your driver's license in the United States, and it is very common for international students to purchase cars. So if you do get hired by the Adirondack Watershed Institute for the summer, and they pay even a little more than minimum wage, I believe, and really encourage our students to apply and work through them in the summer. There are a couple of positions that are available at the Adirondack Watershed Institute for students who are going to stay on campus in the summer, but primarily you have to have a car because you're driving to different lakes and different bodies of water to do your work. And so that's just one thing to keep in mind, but it is a way to work full time through the summer and really save a lot of money.
Sure. Thank you. We've got one question that asks, do you require a tuition deposit before the acceptance?
We're not before the acceptance. We do the tuition deposit before we send the I-20. So our tuition deposit is $250. That tells us that the student is committed and that we will then move forward with processing them and getting them enrolled as a student. So once the student's accepted, there's no fee to apply. If they decide to come, they will have to pay the $250 deposit. I'll then create the I-20, and then we partner with a company called eShip Global, and the student and the family will actually have to go in and arrange for the shipping of the I-20. So right now, the government is allowing us to temporarily email I-20s. However, throughout Africa, we're seeing that the embassies are not accepting emailed copies of I-20s. So we are still suggesting that you pay for the shipping and have us mail you a hard copy, because if you get to your embassy appointment and all you have is the emailed copy of your I-20, you stand the chance of being sent back and have to reschedule. And so you'd be responsible for the $250 deposit, and then for the shipping of the I-20, which is usually around $75 US. If your visa request is denied, number one, that's very common. And so we ask students to sometimes go back 2 and 3 times, and we'll work through with the students on how to prepare for that visa appointment. However, if it's denied and the student decides I have to move on and find another option, we will refund the $250 tuition deposit.
Sure. Thank you so much. The next one is if you could also give a little more insight on is there any age barriers for students to come and join in? Like if there is a student who's got experience after completing the 12th and then would like to join maybe at the age of 30 or 32. So is there any age barriers?
No, there's not any age barriers, and we definitely have a population of non-traditionally aged students. I will say that, you know, living on campus at that age, obviously we would not be putting you with 18, 19, 20-year-olds. And you know, there may be some room if you're 30 and older that we could discuss finding off-campus housing for you, but that would have to go through the process with housing to be approved. And so I think that's the biggest barrier for people, is that they're living on a campus with more traditionally aged students. However, I also recruit for our veteran students, so students who have served in the US military, and they're across the board usually in their 30s already, and they find campus to be very warm and welcoming and receptive to their age, and it's not really a problem.
Sure. So thank you so much. I think we are unfortunately running out of time, and really great points. We were able to address a few of the questions, but of course, if anybody has any questions, please get in touch with us. I would request Jody for your closing lines, as well as if any professors are available for your closing lines.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all for being here. I know that Paul Smith's majors and programs might seem very different, so please feel free to reach out to me. Don't hesitate. Our faculty are always happy to speak with you as well or do presentations for your students. And so please don't hesitate to let us know. We're happy to share what's happening at Paul Smith's. We're different and we're proud of it. And we hope that you can see the value in the type of education we're providing. Thank you all so much for being here. Joe?
No, I just wanted to say goodbye. I wanted to say if you have any questions for me specifically, Jody can forward them to me, and I'm happy to make personal contact. And both the Instagrams for both Jory and my Instagrams, just go to the chat and you can follow us on Instagram. That's all I have to say.
And they're on all the slides as well. So
all right, they're everywhere. Yeah,
they're everywhere. Yeah, check us out on social media.
I want them to follow us, Jody, and see how exciting and great we are. So
yeah, definitely.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much for this wonderful and insightful presentation with all the in-depth details that were mentioned about both the departments as well as from Jody's side for the overall presentation of Paul Smith's College. So before we sign off, we at MSM are happy to see this MSM Live Agent E-Summit 2020 Live has been very informative and a useful resource for our partner agents. And also would request all of you to follow us on our Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube platforms to stay updated on the upcoming events. You can also visit us on our updated website, that's www.msquaremedia.com, to get further updates. So thank you so much for participating in today's webinar. We hope to see you again next time. Stay home, stay safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you.